Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Engage podcast. My name is Chris Hughes and I'm the Communications Committee Chair for the Delta MEC. I hope that everyone has been enjoying the holidays and have had the opportunity to spend well-deserved time with friends and family. And for those of you who have been out flying the line during this busy time of year, as always, thank you for everything you do. Before we jump into some of the latest hot topics and the news recap, I'd like to take a moment to introduce our guest today, Casey Songster. She serves as the Vice Chairman for SMS under the Central Air Safety Committee. Casey, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks again for being here. We really appreciate you taking the time to come talk to the Delta pilots. So let's go ahead and hop right into the news and hot topics. First, a quick message from the Delta Pilot Charitable Fund. Their ties and scarves have sold out this year, so a big thanks to everyone for your support. All orders go to support the Gillette Children's Foundation in St. Paul, Minnesota. The Delta Pilots Charitable Fund's primary goal is to promote the health, education, and welfare of America's most valuable resource, our children. The fund is a registered 501c3 charity, and all donations are tax deductible. Please check with your tax advisor regarding tax deductions, and thank you again for all your support. Signed, the Delta Pilot Charitable Fund. So, you may have noticed an uptick in line check events here in the past couple of weeks. The Standards Department has been hosting a line check engagement event. The company's goal is to have standards pilots on jump seats to talk with line pilots about current hot topics and recent events. So if you hear about an uptick, that's what's going on. ALPA always welcomes the opportunity for pilots to be made more aware of real-world threats and engage with training and standards in a way that fosters a safer operation. However, there are just a few things we'd like pilots to be mindful of. Anytime an LCP is occupying a seat on the flight deck, they have a duty to enforce all Delta policies and procedures, even if they are not conducting an official line check. Jump seat availability may be impacted, so please be aware when planning your commute. Pilots are reminded to communicate safety concerns via the ASAP program. And lastly, during any period of increased line checks, or what were formerly referred to as line check blitzes, pilots are encouraged to be familiar with their fleet's line check emphasis items, available in AeroDocs under your fleet's Training and Standards folder. Additional information can be found in the Flight Standards Engagement Initiative Guide document, also found in the same folder. From ALPA's Safety Committee, they're reporting an uptick in GPS spoofing out of Incheon in recent months, and Delta is working with regulators on possible solutions. If you are a crew member operating out of Incheon that has experienced any navigational irregularities or suspects GPS spoofing, please remember to file an ASAP and an FCR. We welcomed a class of 19 new hires this month, so to any of the new pilots that may be listening, welcome, and we're happy to have you here with us at Delta. They are joining the 1,000-plus pilots already added to the Delta seniority list this year, and they mark the last class of 2024. Friendly reminder from ALPA's Retirement and Insurance Committee, December 31st, 2024 is the deadline for a few things. FSAs, or flexible spending accounts, must be used by December 31st, and all claims for 2024 must be filed no later than March 31st, 2025. Pilots must complete 2 of the 3 items for both you and your spouse, if you have one, to receive the full Delta Health Rewards benefit. You can complete those actions on the Chair app. And lastly, if you have ALPA's accident and or critical illness insurances, you must complete the wellness benefit, like a doctor's visit, optometry visits, etc., to qualify for up to $800 in rewards. Joining us today is Casey Songster, the Vice Chairman for the SMS Committee. She has a message that she would like to share with everyone about positive safety culture. Casey, thanks again for being here and take it away.
So the topic for today that came from safety is positive safety culture, or more specifically, safety culture. It's a term that we're finding is entering our collective vocabulary, which is a good thing. But the downside is there's no meaningful definition that's being utilized to correspond with the term, which is kind of turning it into a meaningless corporate buzzword, like synergy. So the topic focusing on safety culture, specifically positive safety culture, really has to do with the history of where the term came from, is what we're going to talk about. What it is, how we can view it or try to make it more quantifiable, how our line pilots can contribute, and then lastly, what the airline's doing to foster it. So to kick it right off, going into the history of the term, it originated in after the Chernobyl disaster in 1986. The investigators in that disaster realized that the accident was not solely caused by the technical failures that they were really looking into, but it really had to do with the deeply ingrained organizational attitudes and the values that prioritized production over safety. And to be more specific, with a lot of nuclear industries, you have highly trained technical experts in their fields that were bypassing what they knew to be a major malfunction for the sake of not having to report it to their leadership. So if that sounds like something that aviation would take very seriously, then you would be correct. So today, safety culture, the term, is now a well-entrenched and deeply meaningful concept, and it's defined as a set of values, beliefs, and rules that guide how an organization prioritizes safety in its daily operations. So that's a very mouthy way of saying, just like any culture, like national culture, it's how we do things, it's how we communicate things, and it's how we change things. And there's 5 parts you can really think of, and they came from James Reason, who's you've probably heard of with the Swiss cheese model. We can break down safety culture into a reporting culture, flexible culture, learning culture, just culture, and informed culture. And more specifically, safety culture can be positive, negative, or neutral. So we've gone into the history, and now we've gone into a bit of the definition of safety culture, but now we need to talk about how we can control it and what the line pilots specifically could do regarding our safety culture. So it's a pretty nuanced question. It makes it sound like we're not doing enough, or perhaps our efforts are not going far enough, but really it's culture in general is subliminal. And it's challenging to state definitively what the culture is at Delta. How we approach safety as line pilots and we manage risks in our operation are a part of our culture. And going back to the elements of safety culture, our reporting culture is a major aspect of that. If you see something, say something. It sounds like definitely something that's going to go up on a bulletin board in a break room, or something that you'll see in our lounges, but filing ASAP reports, specifically novel sole source reports, is a major aspect of that. And we'll go into more on what the company does on the other side of that to kind of incentivize or reinforce good behaviors along those lines. But flagging risks it can't be trivialized. That's one of the biggest aspects of our safety culture. And in my neck of the woods in safety management systems, you cannot have adequately performing or even well-performing safety management system, airline, if you don't have a good safety culture, specifically a good reporting culture, or robust, I should say. Now, one of the things we also have to talk about now that we're in our reasons safety culture elements is our learning culture. One of the things that I'm very impressed by when I'm out on the line is our use of Flight Pulse. And that's something that the company directly receives feedback on, and they're investing in that product further based off how we use it. And I think we take that for granted. So being able to assess our own performance data and refine our approach to how we fly our airplanes, for instance, using auto brakes, beating the fleet on hand flying time, all of that is part of our learning culture, and that feeds directly into how we respond to safety events as well. For me, as a first officer, if I see a fast taxi speed flag in Flight Pulse, I'm probably more likely to speak up if I see my captain approaching that 30 knot area, because I don't want to deal with a flag. So that's just another example as well with that learning culture. So safety promotion is another thing that we see in SMS a lot. One of the things we have that we focus on is putting out information in a transparent way as to why changes are being done. And this is something that we can engage with and provide feedback for. And I don't see it too often. When we have our significant event summaries, that's a really well-received product. People love talking about it, armchair quarterbacking. I wouldn't have done that. I would have done this. And so that's just another way. If you talk about that on the flight deck, if you're up in cruise and you're bored, that's a tremendous way that we are owning our own safety culture. So we've talked about the history and a definition of safety culture. Now we've gone into what we can do about it. And I think one of the more critical aspects is what our airline can do or does regarding our safety culture. Organizations with a strong safety culture are also ones that are continuously learning from incidents, mistakes, and near misses. Transparency is a huge aspect of this. For our ASAP team, it's closing the loop adequately with our pilots. Anytime you submit a safety report, you usually get an email that says it's been closed. Over 96% of those reports receive those emails, making those a little bit more customized, and also trying to give feedback back to the pilot and gratitude for the report, but also what was done about that is a major step that they're working on. But when they receive over 25,000 reports a year, it's a little difficult, but they are grappling with that issue. That's a huge cornerstone of a safety culture, is making sure information flows not just into the safety department, but back out again as well, so you can see what actions were taken. So if you feel like your concern is being addressed, you'll more than likely file more reports, and that's something that's pretty well known, and it'll be a valuable use of your time to file more reports in the future. Another opportunity they're trying to take forward is any safety event. So closing the loop after a major event happens, it captivates our attention. Finding out what went wrong or what went right and feeding that information back to the pilots is another challenge as well.
So, Casey, let me hit pause right there for just a second. And I just want to note to the listener that Casey, by the way, has given this entire talk without really anything but some rough notes. And so I got to say, your thoughts are super well organized and it's impressive. I am curious for just a second. One of the terms that I hear thrown around a lot is safety climate. And what is your perspective on how that differs from when we hear positive safety culture? What's kind of the difference in those terms?
So a safety climate is kind of a newer term, and it's intended to be a timestamp. So when you think safety climate versus culture, it's what our behaviors and relationships with the safety are at a very specific time. And the intention of adding time into the answer is if you take a sample or you ask someone after a specific safety event what someone's thoughts are, then you're only going to be sampling one bit of a culture. And so that's safety climate. It's just a single moment, an impulse of what the culture is at that time.
Okay. Is there a way that ALPA or the company, Delta Airlines, has a way of measuring or, I guess, gathering information on safety climate versus safety culture, or a way that we maybe encourage pilots to participate in giving feedback in that?
So it's like a time-lapse photo. We have a adequate way of measuring the safety climate with surveys, and it's taking qualitative data and trying to make it into a more quantitative approach. That way we can at least fall back on information that shows us how our changes that we're making, for instance, the transparency movements, are actually working. So we do put surveys out regularly. We're going to be looking into that in 2025. And then as long as we take them at semi-regular intervals, we can combine that picture to see how our safety climate is changing and how our safety culture is being impacted.
Okay. I know we had kind of talked briefly prior to recording about the safety culture survey and how, oftentimes safety culture is almost difficult to see from the inside of the organization. So is there anything that ALPA's Central Air Safety Committee does to engage with pilots on a more regular basis?
Unfortunately, we don't do a lot of personal interface. We rely heavily on our data streams that are either our FOQA gatekeepers and their interactions with pilots, our ASAP team members within the event review committee and how they report back reporting behaviors, and then our new LOSA observers, our line operation safety assessment, and their interactions with crew members and their safety positivity. So we rely a lot on numbers to give us an idea, and what we are working with in the industry as a whole is trying to come up with a better idea of what a well-performing safety management system looks like and what reporting rates are acceptable. And unfortunately, no one has a really good answer right now. But that is our current overture within Central Air Safety, is better determining if what we say is a good indicator of a safety culture is in fact good. Okay,
excellent. That's all been really interesting information. Like I said, you kind of regurgitate so much of it without even, it seems like it's almost at ease for you. So I feel like it's very ingrained in your mind. And you're very knowledgeable on the subject. So I appreciate you taking the time and coming and talking with us about it. I've definitely learned some things, and I think the listeners have also going to have a few takeaway points. But any final thoughts on your message about positive safety culture today?
I do have one, and it wouldn't be a safety conversation without talking about James Reason, and two, having a little bit of foreboding, which is appropriate at the very end of our talk. And that element is the absence of serious or significant safety events, accidents, or incidents doesn't indicate that we are indeed safe. So falling back on metrics to point out that we are safe or we do have a positive safety culture due to the absence of significant events is a fallacy, and that we have to own our safety culture at any given time. And it is controllable from the top down and also the bottom up. So that's my final thought on that.
Okay. Yeah, that's very poignant. Thank you. So I think that's going to wrap up our Engage episode for today. Thank you all for listening. I just want to remind everyone, a lot of exciting things coming up in 2025. We should have a podcast out with your new chairman, Eric Criswell. Excited to hear from them about their plans for the next year and about some of the things that we kind of have teed up and ready to go. So happy holidays, everyone. Fly safe. Thank you for all you do, and we'll see you next time.